yeah, Richard Ramirez walked the streets, and now I'm walking around the corner, and it's gross out here. Yeah, this is not a good neighborhood. Maybe it could be good. It'll be good in like 10 years once it's fully co-opted by white people. But this place it's intense. You can see how Richard you fit in here. I'm walking around here, all skinny. I've seen 3 guys looking pretty Ramirez-y myself. And I'm not being racist. I'm just saying skinny, bad teeth. There's a good suit store over here. That could help Richard. Maybe he would find a job. He could straighten his life out. It's beautiful in Los Angeles. It's amazing how, even though it's beautiful, you can still feel exactly how much of a piece of shit this whole fucking neighborhood is. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm in a bad area, and I gotta stop talking on my phone. There's a man staring at me across the street with a Captain America shirt on. So, all right, I'm gonna wrap this up.
Yeah, get out of there, Henry. I'll tell you this: the streets of Skid Row. There's going to be a pig roast tonight if Zabrowski hangs around. Homeless men are going to eat like kings. They're going to eat like King Ralph in that great John Goodman film, King Ralph. I love the fact that Henry was walking through the Cecil. Is it Cecil or Cecil?
I mean, I think it's up to you.
You know what I'm calling it? Cecil Cecil.
Cecil Cecil Hotel.
The Cecil Cecil Hotel. He's walking through the hotel, and he describes homeless individuals being there, the overwhelming stench of dookie on the floor that seemed to be covered up with Lysol and some Febreze perhaps. But you know who is the only person that got kicked out?
Who?
Henry Zabrowski. How is that possible? The place smells like an outhouse. It's full of homeless individuals, and Henry's the only one that gets kicked out of there. What's he doing? I feel like he's a pretty obvious detective. Taking pictures and things.
With the pink shorts and the lizard shirt?
Good God, Henry. When we send you undercover, blend in.
Yeah, that's the first rule of surveillance.
Exactly. Put some mud on your face. Maybe drip a little pee in the pants. Maybe don't do it so, maybe don't take the proper pee next time you go.
Yeah.
Cut it off 90% the way through and leave that extra 10% in your pants for authenticity.
Yes.
But Skid Row, Henry was describing its danger, and it truly is dangerous. Marcus, you got a couple of statistics that prove that.
This Skid Row is in downtown Los Angeles, a relatively small area, but
what do you think? Is it 3 blocks, 4 blocks?
Man, I don't exactly know exactly how big it is. But it's a fairly small, relatively small,
right.
Relative to the rest of Los Angeles, but it's in Los Angeles County, and it accounts for half of the crime, literally 50% of the crime in all of Los Angeles County. It's been home to not only people, serial killers who lived on Skid Row,
right.
but there was actually a serial killer who operated on Skid Row itself.
Just killing on Skid Row.
Just killing on Skid Row, only killing homeless guys. His name was Bobby Joe Maxwell. He operated from October of 1978 to January of 1979. He killed 11 homeless men. We got to cover this guy in a later episode because he apparently was a ritual slayer. He was an occultist. So this guy actually did bring some of the occult into his crimes, and it seems like L.A. is such a hotbed of occultist crimes. That's where I think you find the majority of them. Midwest guys, they kill for the sheer pleasure of killing.
Right.
Los Angeles guys, they kill for a reason. They kill for a purpose. Seems like Los Angeles guys have more of a motive behind what they're doing.
Well, and they like to dress up a little bit more. Wisconsin guys, Dahmer killed half those people in his sweatpants. He had a shirt on similar to Roseanne, that Roseanne would wear in the show Roseanne.
Huh. Now that I look at it, I'm wearing a shirt very similar to the one that Jeffrey Dahmer wore during his trial.
Well, all right. Take it easy.
Don't let the colored shirt fool you. That was given to him by the detective that questioned him.
It was actually a gift the detective gave to his son, and then went up to his son and said, "Son, can I have that shirt back that I gave you?" And then this is a true story. After the trial, Dahmer gave him the shirt back, and the detective went to his son, and he was like, "Here's your shirt." And the kid was like, Dad, you can keep that one, because Dahmer wore it, you psychopath. So this guy really was just a full buffet of killing for him.
Full buffet, man.
Never had to leave Skid Row.
Yep, killed guys like Francisco Perez Rodriguez, Jimmy White Buffalo, had a Native American in there, Frank Lloyd Reed, J.P. Henderson, great homeless guy names.
Frank Lloyd Reed? He had to be the smartest one. He was the one definitely making garbage bag airplanes, right?
He was the one that the kids liked.
Yeah, absolutely. Cardboard box mansions, like you went to Lloyd. No doubt about that. All right, so now we are about to pick up with Henry. Where is he at?
He's actually on the streets of Skid Row right now.
So he's still there.
He's still there, and he is still walking down the streets of Skid Row.
Okay, and as you can notice from the audio that Henry's sent in, he's getting winded. So let's hope he doesn't get too tired.
I gotta say, the streets of Skid Row really do smell like pee-pee, but it really makes me homesick to be back in New York. So that is nice. The actual pee smell. It sends me back, you know? And speaking of pee smell, I gotta pee pretty fucking bad myself, and I don't know where I'm gonna go because the Hotel Cecil won't let me back inside because they saw me taking pictures. All right. Well, I'm just gonna have to. I gotta start wearing my last podcast in the left adventure diapers. Straight up walking around Glendale right now, there is a raccoon sitting on top of a garbage can. It's the middle of the day. Raccoons are supposed to only come out at night. I'm starting to think I'm getting followed around by animals. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's like a Dr. Dolittle thing where they think that I can fucking talk to them, or they think I'm gonna help them. I don't know if these animals think they're reaching out to me to be like, hey, will you come and talk to my... I'm Muriel Ramirez. Excuse me, I'm Muriel Ramirez. Will you please go to my daughter? I know now. I have raccoon dick. But please, will you go to my daughter and tell her the gold is in the vault? It's like, you just show me where this fucking vault is and I'll get it for your daughter. And then I go and I pop in the vault and I get out the gold. And I quit everything. I quit this, I quit acting. And I just go live with gold and have a good time. I'm lonely out here. I don't know if you can tell that. I'm out by a highway, just walking around looking for crime. I think it's about time I get down to the Hotel Cecil. Well, I think it's about time I get over to the Elizabeth Short. God, I spurped real hard. Ooh. I gotta go help Elizabeth Short get released to heaven. So for my next location, I'm driving around, of course, what is LA synonymous with in true crime, the Black Dahlia murders. We've never really got a chance to cover it on the podcast because there's not much to cover to it. There's, besides one of the most grisly crime scenes ever recorded in true crime history. Elizabeth Short was, of course, found abandoned on a street, cut in half. Her face was scarred into a gruesome smile. The breasts were cut open. Because the guy wasn't a gentleman. And so now I'm driving down to this lovely, it seems to be a very sweet residential neighborhood here in West Los Angeles. It's a bad neighborhood coming into it. Their address is here is 3831 South Norton Avenue. I just took a picture of the exact spot where that body was dumped, which was next to a fire hydrant out here. I'm kind of self-conscious to stay because a woman literally was looking out the windows as I stopped to take the picture, and now I have a man who is following me and talking on the phone. That's fine. It's fine. I'm not getting followed. I was paranoid. All right, I got all this weed called Charlie Sheen, and it's very strong. It's almost too strong. I saw a spider in the house yesterday, and I thought it was a brown recluse. But then someone's like, a brown recluse is really big. But I don't know. How the fuck am I supposed to know? Did I grow up in spiders? Right? Am I some kind of bug scientist? No. No, I'm not. Well, either way, Elizabeth Short, I'm sure the boys are going to fill in with even more information. But she died a gruesome death, and nobody knows why. I don't believe she was a prostitute, personally. I just think she had dark hair, and that was very upsetting for people at the time. I'd love to find a place to stop so I could sit and talk, but I don't really know where I'm going. And now, this man is following me. There's a man that's been following me this entire time since I left this house and stopped and took a picture. So I think this is getting a little weird. So I think I'm just gonna try and find a way to lose this guy up here in a sea of traffic. Crenshaw Boulevard, make it a right. Just to sort of illuminate what happened to me while I was looking for the dumping ground of the Black Dahlia victim, Elizabeth Short. So I'm driving down what is this nice residential neighborhood in the middle of West Los Angeles. As I'm driving around, I pull up upon the address where she was dumped, which is 3831 Northrum Drive, over in the middle of this very nice neighborhood, which is like 2 blocks from an absolutely disgusting neighborhood in Los Angeles. That happens a lot out here. It's like you drive down 1 block and you're like, oh my God, is ScarJo here? And then you go on the next block and there's a man like fingering himself next to a trash can, which I guess is no different than New York, but it's very surprising because there's fucking palm trees. Well, anyways, I pull up to the address. Now, these people must be very used to this happening, because when I was researching the exact location of the dumping ground, I found all these websites that had people like laying on the grass, like just like laying, going like acting as if they were Elizabeth Short, and I do see how that could be considered disrespectful. But let's just say I was just driving past taking pictures, kind of like a private investigator, which is what I fancied myself, except for the fact that I was in pink shorts and I was just sucking on iced coffee. But it was nice. It was kind of a little vacation for me. This is a fun hobby for me to have out here, which is sad. I try to describe it to people, and they're like, are you a murderer yourself? Is this you scoping out places for you to dump bodies? And I'm just like, no, I'm a normal man. And people are honking me on the streets because I'm talking. It's, it's not like it's normal. This isn't normal for me to be talking to my phone. Anyways, so I pull up to the side of the road, and I'm taking pictures, and a man comes running out of the house. This is why I was confused while I was sitting and recording. The man runs in the house. He jumps into his car, he revs it up, and he comes up from behind me, basically nearly bumps my car. We then proceed to drive around this neighborhood where he is about a foot from me, following me throughout the entire neighborhood, turn after turn after turn, just looking at me. And then until finally we pulled up to a red light, and there was a turnoff to a gas station, and I just blew through the gas station and lost him in traffic. And I was like, it wasn't your family. You know what I mean? Elizabeth Short wasn't your family member. I know you don't like people. I understand. I was taking pictures of your house. You know what I mean? And I'm weird. And I literally had a shirt with a reptilian on it. So, I look like a disinfo agent, or just a true crime tourist, which LA has. And we're an obnoxious lot. I understand that. But there's no reason to try to kill me. I'm just searching for the truth.
Good Lord. All right. What an adventure Henry is having so far.
Yeah, and he is at the site of the Black Dahlia murders.
Okay.
And to give you a little bit of background on Elizabeth Short, the victim herself,
yes.
Apparently in school, and Henry is right, it's a boring case. I don't care what anyone says.
Well, it's a single murder, and
the only thing interesting about the Black Dahlia murders is the gruesome crime scene itself.
Well, I think it's interesting because she was cut with such precision.
Yeah.
It's very rare. Usually these people are more like a Kissel Zabrowski Parks combination at a barbecue restaurant, just tearing the meat off the bones. But this guy, he was surgical about it.
She was posed in a very seductive way.
Yeah.
Her face was slashed so that her smile went from ear to ear, Joker style.
Right.
But she had the absolute worst part about it, which she had been cut, as you said, with surgical precision, right in two, right above her waist.
Right.
And they're brutal crime scene photos. You can go and check them out. And they said that the official cause of death was hemorrhage and shock due to concussion of the brain and lacerations of the face, which means that she was knocked on the head, she was cut from mouth to ear, and then died, and the cut in half part was done post-mortem.
And the guy who killed her, of course, went on to become a plastic surgeon. He worked on the likes of Bruce Jenner, and he's worked with Mickey Rourke. He ruins human bodies.
Yeah, he does. And Elizabeth Short, she was known in high school as Medford High's Deanna Durbin.
Deanna Durbin. Yes, Medford's High, Deanna Durbin. The sky... it's the limit. The sky is the limit. The sky isn't the limit, I would say. There's what is it? Who is Deanna Durbin?
She was a very popular film actress and singer back in Elizabeth Short's day. So popular, in fact, that in her high school autograph book, there were 10 references to the nickname, such as, to a friend worth having in Medford High's Deanna Durbin. And another said, to the sweetest and cutest double of Deanna Durbin.
I mean, when your celebrity lookalike or your celebrity, when people, it should always be someone real famous.
At the time, Deanna Durbin was extremely famous.
Medford's High, Deanna Durbin. I can't believe she died.
I mean, it would possibly, say today, it would be Medford High's Katherine Heigl. In 50 years, no one's going to know who the fuck Katherine Heigl was.
50 years? I don't know who she is now. She cried her way out of Hollywood. Katherine Heigl. She was in the Knocked Up movies, and then all she did is complain about how she got women roles. I don't know what she wanted.
Terrible woman.
Yes, terrible.
But to continue the story with Elizabeth Short, basically, her body was found abandoned. There are several stories leading up to what she was doing in Los Angeles and what she was doing leading up to her eventual murder. Basically, what you find out is that she was an aspiring actress, cocktail waitress, may have had some relations with several different men. We do know that when she was found, I mean, of course, there's many different suspects involved, but that we know that her purse and ID was mailed to the police station not a couple days after her murder. There is some pretty staunch evidence now that it was this doctor. A woman came out and wrote a book basically saying that her father was the murderer. And I guess just learned this lesson and just didn't do it again. So good for him. Good for him. He did good then. Right? That's nice. It's nice to see that people can learn. Yeah, so her life was horrible. And she's dead. And that's very sad. I wish there was more to it, except for the fact that I imagine people will get pretty upset when you start taking pictures in front of their house. I'll put those pictures up on the Facebook page. I only really got one before that dude started hounding me. Very interesting. Get your blood up. It's nice to be chased down the street. I feel like I'm finally doing some real satanic work here. Still gotta pee. Oh my God, do I have to piss. I'm making my way back. And so what I'm gonna say here is this. You guys start giving me suggestions of where I should go in Los Angeles. I want to do more of these. This was a lot of fun for me. It allows me to see some more of the city. I also want to hear some weird shit. I may go up and check out Rob Zombie's Halloween Land up in Burbank. It's supposed to be incredible, but I may just do that for myself. Also, if anybody's got any psychics, people who live in the Los Angeles area who wants to recommend me any psychics or past life regressionists or any people I'd like to see and get to know in this fucking town of sin and bitchery, that would be amazing. Send me on an adventure. I have days off. It's not a hard job I'm doing right now in A to Z, but it's a lot of fun. You guys can check it out. Thursday, it's October 2nd, 9:30 on NBC. I'm just going to keep fucking plugging it because it's technically my job. All right, dudes and dudettes, I will see you in hell. Hail Satan. Hail me!
I'll tell you, that was a real Uncle Jesse closing there. Dudes and dudettes. What are you thinking, Henry? Dudes and dudettes. That was great, though. What a wonderful journey that we just went on through Skid Row, Cecil Hotel, all ending with the Black Dahlia. Thank you for listening to that, and I hope you guys learned a little bit about the dangers of Los Angeles. You don't just go in there and failing as an actor is the best thing that could happen. The worst thing is you get addicted to drugs, become homeless, hang out on Skid Row, and get murdered. Great journey. All right, everyone, I want to thank you for listening. We have the live show coming up here on August 30th at 10 p.m. right here on the Creek in the Cave. That is this Saturday in a couple of days, so come on out to that. It's always a great time. We show disturbing videos, and we laugh and laugh and laugh.
Yeah, this week we've got Ed Larson from The Brighter Side and the Roundtable of Gentlemen sitting in for Henry, so it's going to be one hell of a time. It's going to be fucking great.
That's right. The seat thought it was going to get a break this month, but we got one fatter for you, seat.
Creek in the Cave, 1093 Jackson Avenue, 10 p.m., August 30th, and let's hope to see y'all there.
That's right, and that is, of course, is Marcus Parks on Twitter. I'm Ben Kissel on Twitter. That's Henry Loves You on Twitter. All right, Magustalations.
Halgeen.
And, of course, hail yourselves, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
There's no place to escape to.
This is the last podcast.
On the left. That's when the cannibalism started.
What was that?
Let's do a game of zip, zap, zap.
Zip, zap, zap. That's what you want to do?
Yeah, zip. Zap. Zip.
Zip. No. Zip, zap.
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 No.
Zap.
Zip, zap.
It's nope.
Zip.
I fucking got an Uzi and I shoot you in the dick.
Whoa.
Like that? Is it like, you know, when you play like rock, paper, scissors, then the kid's like, dynamite.
Yeah, I do think kids nowadays are playing like Uzi, handgun, or grenade. And I'm not sure. I guess Uzi beats grenade, but grenade beats handgun.
Mm-hmm. An Uzi definitely beats gun use instructor. That's for certain.
Holy Lord.
Saw that video.
That hero
that guy didn't
9-year-old.
stand a fucking chance.
Well, I would say when you give a Uzi to a 9-year-old, step back. Don't put your face right in front of where the gun is.
It's kind of like that. It's like if you give a mouse a cookie.
Right.
You remember that book? It's like that. Mm-hmm. But in the end of the Give a Mouse a Cookie, I don't remember. It's been a long time since I read it. Does it kill the family?
Yes, the cookie was full of drugs and other psychedelics, and then the mouse freaks out and gnaws down your face.
I just saw the cat. The cat is like 10 times its size, and it's got an Abraham Lincoln's face to it, and I just gotta fucking kill it. I gotta kill it.
An Abraham Lincoln-looking cat. Murder it. Welcome to the show, everyone. That's Marcus Parks. I'm Ben Kissel. We're joined from all the way from beautiful Los Angeles by a
It
fella.
is raccoon adventurer Henry Zabrowski. I will put this way. So I'm now living in Silver Lake, California, which is very friendly, sort of hipster community out here in Los Angeles. But what I will say is that number one, people are suspiciously nice.
Oh, I hate that.
Someone gave me their table at breakfast.
What do you mean?
They were like literally like, "Oh, you need a table. Oh, we should have been done anyway. You can sit at our table."
They're cultists. They're all cultists.
Exactly.
They're trying to recruit you into some disgusting sex ring.
And it's working. And second of all, the Hitler mustache is making a big return.
I thought Michael Jordan was the only one that could pull off that Hitler mustache.
No. Now you got kids with fucking like a weird Coca-Cola shirt on with a tiny little Hitler mustache and like and the gelled hair. They're dressing actively like Hitler out here. They're fine with it. Also, the raccoons do literally roam the streets at night,
All right.
in roving packs. And I was told to get a stick because sometimes they will attack you on the street.
You're told to get a raccoon stick to carry around with you while you're jaunting around the neighborhood?
I don't know what the fuck's happening in this city, but these raccoons are treated like royalty. They are let go. There should be a dude out here with a fucking scythe just cutting through these raccoons.
If the Dan Aykroyd, John Candy movie, The Great Outdoors, taught us anything about raccoons, they're cocky, and they're assholes, and they're rude. I'm very excited about today's episode. This is going to be, it's a two-parter. This is the first half of chemical testing in the U.S. government. A little bit different than MK Ultra. This is about really finding the best chemicals to destroy the most amount of people. And who do we practice on? Our own soldiers.
The best part about this, the thing about this topic is that you can definitely see how MK Ultra could have used the data that came from Edgewood Arsenal in Maryland, United States, which was a chemical weapon testing facility. Marcus will illuminate this further, but it's very interesting to know that like a lot of information came out on testing various weaponized gases on our soldiers and psychedelic drugs to sort of, as we've already talked about it for MK Ultra, they're trying to make a super spy. This was to try and the idea was they were trying to protect our soldiers by learning how to properly protect them from gas and psychedelic warfare.
And this, of course, this started after World War II. And if you remember our soldiers during World War II, they were kind of duds. And then we sent some people out to Vietnam, some of the coolest guys around, listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival and things like that.
Well, they definitely were more violent in Vietnam.
Yeah, they had to be.
Except for on the beaches at Iwo Jima, because those people were like fighting with swords and shit.
Yeah, it was a wild time.
So the Edgewood Arsenal facility from 1955 to 1975 was a place where the U.S. Army Chemical Corps conducted classified medical studies. And about...
Medical studies, huh?
Medical studies, exactly. There was,
Very similar to Unit 731.
This is, once we get into it, you'll not only see similarities to Unit 731, but you'll also see similarities to some of the Nazi medical experiments during World War II.
With the Nazi experiments and with Unit 731, they were experimenting on their enemies.
Yes.
These were our soldiers.
Yes, and while they did take a little bit more care than Dr. Mengele, they were still experimenting on United States soldiers. They experimented on 7,000 soldiers. They used more than 250 different chemicals. Here's an example of some of the chemicals they used. They used nerve agents like VX and sarin gas. If you remember sarin gas, there was a Japanese cult in the 90s that filled subways in Japan full of sarin gas. It was terrifying.
What I will say too is I also researching this topic made me really learn what nerve gas was. I hadn't actually known what it does, but basically it just shuts off all your organs.
Yeah,
right.
Basically, it makes your nerves seize in your brain and all over your body. So it's like your whole body just shuts down. So technically, it's sort of humane because you die almost immediately. But the 15 microseconds before you die are pretty rough.
It's also very good if you're at karaoke and you want to sing a song called Have a Little Help from My Friends, but you really want to look like Joe Cocker when you're singing.
The worst part about nerve agents, though, is not the people who die, but the people who are exposed to only a small amount of it. Say, you're in the World War II battlefield. You're out there in the battlefields of France. You're out there in the trenches. The guys that are in the middle of the gas cloud, they die instantly. But say you're on the very edge of the gas cloud and you only get a small, tiny, minuscule dose of it, you're about to go through an extremely painful time. Adolf Hitler, for example, was exposed to nerve gas. He went blind for 2 weeks, and when he woke up, World War I was over.
Oh, he missed World War I.
It's pretty sweet. And then a .0005 will automatically learn how to play the piano. So you don't know
right.
if it's going to be good or bad. Sometimes you that experiment turns you into Spider-Man, and sometimes that experiment turns you into Lenny from Of Mice and Men.
Yeah, well, leave Lenny alone. I think Lenny's got a bad rap throughout history.
Well, they also used atropine and scopolamine, which are
Scopolamine is the zombie drug. That is the most powerful drug on the face of the planet. What they use in South America in order for people to go and steal money out of their ATMs and fiddle with their balls.
So they'll have a whole night of activity and not remember any of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like Tecates, right?
Yes.
Tecates and 2 or 3 Xanax, and then you hit a bowl, and then the next thing you know, you've signed up for a blood drive.
Mr. Zabrowski, I don't think we're going to need your blood here. You're highly intoxicated, and you're currently you're drinking some of it.
But I have all this blood. It's in me.
You're right. No, you're just cutting yourself right now, sir.
They used irritants and riot control agents, tear gas, and the like. Of course, they used LSD, cannabinoids. They used pot, but they used highly concentrated THC, what we call oils today.
Red oil.
Yeah, red oil.
Cool.
And they used PCP. We'll get into that later.
So much fun.
Yeah, it's really
so much fun. That's really funny what they do with the PCP.
And they also used a chemical compound called BZ, which is extremely powerful. The effects last over a period of 3 days, and we're going to get into how they use that to really fuck with soldiers during certain tests.
And how is this different than a weekend at Charlie Sheen's house?
That is voluntary, and I think you know what you're going into with Charlie Sheen's house.
That's true.
Yeah.
But
But
Jenna
with
Jameson
this,
isn't there just telling everybody how things used to be.
and of course, they also experimented with alcohol and caffeine on those guys, although that was definitely on the lower end of the spectrum.
Yeah,
And I will
there's- so
say
there's
that I'm doing tests pretty similar to Edgewood in that effect in my apartment here in Silver Lake, California.
Right. So some guys were just like full of LSD. Other guys were sarin, and other guys just walked out of there being like, I love Colombian coffee. I can't get enough of Colombian grade coffee.
Yes,
I got to tell you, I can't tell any difference between the crystals and the ground coffee.
This is unbelievable. That guy went on to become CEO of Folgers.
Yeah, Edgewood went on to make all of those gotcha commercials from the 1980s, switching crystals for real coffee.
Edgewood did actually do some good things. Before we get into the terrible stuff, Edgewood did do a couple of things to advance the cause of humanity. They were the first to design Kevlar vests, bulletproof vests.
And they learned that the hard way each time. That's the problem with that experiment.
Well, we shot one guy without any vest, and then we put a shirt on somebody. They both died.
What we need is we definitely just needed it's a clean testing area, so we had to have one with no vest at all.
Yeah, what poor sucker has to be the first vest guy? Just stand there, we're going to shoot you. No idea if it works yet.
All right, well, I've just been in a dinner here for only 49 years, and I can't believe I remember I was cleaning this floor since you were a baby, Dr. Ketchup.
How'd he die? He was a hero.
Some of the experiments they used for mustard gas, that was the basis for early cancer chemotherapies. And there was a guy named John Clements. He made a discovery about how surfactants, which, that's detergents, household cleaners, behaved in the lungs, which saved the lives of hundreds of thousands of children. They changed the way a lot of those things were made. These things that were, because in the 50s,
Right.
we used a lot of stuff that killed a lot of kids.
Right.
Because we just didn't test it. We didn't really know what it was. We just put a bunch of compounds together, found out that it took a stain out of a carpet and put it on the market.
Right.
But
Now,
these were
this is my
some
problem. Were we killing kids, or were we making further generations of kids stronger?
That's a good point.
So the beginnings of Edgewood. Edgewood has been around since the early 1900s. It's been around since World War I, because, of course, World War I was when the most intense bout of chemical warfare that the world has ever seen occurred. Like, it was every single battle. Well, not every single, but most of the trench warfare battles were decided through chemical warfare, and it was horrific. It was the worst deaths imaginable.
They also had no idea what they were doing. Gas mask technology was also way far behind, and so
No,
they
it
were
was just put your underwear on your head. It's not even that much of an exaggeration.
Johnny, you got to tie that scarf shot. It's a scarf just wrapped around his face.
Yeah.
It is very, they were just shooting this poisonous gas out there. And so basically what Edgewood was started on the basis of was how to make war more humane, which is fucked up.
It's very ironic.
No, we'll hear much more about the justifications of these people later. This is what an Army private wrote in 1918 concerning Edgewood. He said,
Everyone we talked to on the way out here said we were coming to the place God forgot. They tell tales about men being gassed and burned.
Gassed and
Sometimes-
burned.
yeah.
You'd get a tight little girl walking around. She'd get all the boys real good, stiff and hard till you. It was this new syndrome. It's called the blue balls. Have you seen it? Your balls become so full of juice and semen they become blue to the texture.
So
It's a torture in and of itself.
you're equating mustard gas to blue balls.
So 1941, Franklin D. Roosevelt appointed this guy named Alfred Richards, who was a respected pharmacologist, to coordinate wartime medical research. Year after that, Richards decides, okay, we've been testing on animals for a long time, but we really need to use humans.
Yep.
Who are we going to use? Soldiers.
Yep, done testing on those pesky animals. It's time to up your game.
Oh, and the testing on animals that they filmed a ton of this stuff. Like all of this stuff that we're going to be talking about today, like this is all well documented. A lot of the research that we got was from an amazing series of New Yorker articles.
It was like
These
baseball.
New Yorker articles, and then also this. Hold on 1 second.
This is where the testing went, but on another level, though, like baseball. Remember, Babe Ruth was playing and Mickey Mantle, but then that was a fine game. What made it better? Jackie Robinson. They're stepping up their game.
And also the documentary Bad Trip to Edgewood that features a lot because they filmed everything and they hit it. It's an hour long. It's an hour of basically just pure Edgewood material. And this shit is fucking psychedelic. It's just like the whole thing would be an awesome just backdrop to a party, and you toss some 9 Inch Nails on it, and you put the documentary on mute, and it's just like, and you get like a girl sidled over, and you like tell her about how like, you know, like sometimes you have dark thoughts, and she's like, I want to help you. Like that'll help you.
Yeah, then you end up in a CeeLo Green situation.
Oh, no.
But that is funny that you mentioned that. And I guess we'll get into more of that in part 2. But the one thing about the bad trip in Edgewood, I think that wasn't so much the drugs. It was the military instructor screaming at him. Acid and just being scolded is awful.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later.
Yeah. That'll be in part 2. And if you watch this video, you also see the tests they used involving animals. They did a lot of gas mask tests with goats. For some reason,
funny.
It's really actually. I mean, a lot of the goats died. Almost all of the goats died. But they found out that the research they were doing on these animals was not transferable to what the effects were on humans. One of the guys said, "In the hands of competent experimenters, much can be learned concerning the prevention and treatment of gas burns in men without subjecting them to more than relatively trivial annoyance or disability."
Now
He's
we're
a
gonna see
sociopath.
he's a sociopath. And we're going to see what trivial annoyances and disabilities that they did to these people, which is absolutely insane. And what I do like with all of those videos, honestly, Bad Trip to Edgewood leads with these videos of the animal experimentation, and it's so fucked up and dark because it's just them taking the cutest puppies and like just sticking them in their heads in a box full of liquefied LSD. Right. And it's just put them all in the head, and then it's just them just going like, it's just like, honestly, it's like the beginning of YouTube. It's like right there. Right. It's like David after dentist, but it's just give a cat 100 times the normal human dose of LSD and watch what it does.
Yeah, they put a cat into a tiny little box, gave it a shit ton of LSD, and they just started setting mice loose.
I'll tell you, it was a bad day for a cat. Great day for those mice, though. Those mice were destroying that cat.
It was also very interesting to watch the collection of cats form a loose sort of baseball game, featuring a chopstick that they found in a garbage can and then a rolled up piece of paper. And it was just sort of like, that is interesting.
Grumpy Cat was the catcher.
It didn't know the experiment was going to go there.
So in 1948, the scientists decided that if they were really going to get some solid test results, they had to start experimenting on soldiers who had no idea what was going to happen to them.
Right.
But only the strongest of the soldiers.
Yes,
it was the top 25%. What do they call them? The astronaut class?
Yes, they called them the astronaut class. The top 25%, those guys would be tested with the nerve agents, and the bottom 25%, those guys would be testing equipment.
Shouldn't we be sending the lower 25% into space? Why are we getting rid of all of our good ones? Sending them to the moon. We got wars to fight here on Earth.
Astronaut Class is an amazing prog rock band.
Yeah, I've heard them. They're wonderful.
So an Edgewood test subject, he said that he was given the nerve agent VX, which we mentioned earlier, and VX, when it's applied to the skin, it's 100 times as deadly as sarin. So an officer comes to the soldier's bedside, he draws a tiny little circle on his arm, and then another doctor comes in with a syringe and squirts a drop of liquid onto his skin. And they said the effect wasn't necessarily immediate, but it was rapid. And the subject, he heard other people groan, and he heard one dude say like, "Oh shit."
It just sounds like. Have you ever heard Eddie Larson from Roundtable's story of the time when he was serving as the head of this graduation chair, and he had to like organize the graduation ceremony, and he was to lead this group of kids, and he went over to they were all going to do acid after graduation, and his dealer went up to him, and it was just like, okay, here, I'm just going to put these on these tabs for you, and Ed held the tab, and then he missed and squirted the whole bottle onto his hand, and so he just became a tripping madman. And just imagine that. But it is a drug 100 times more powerful than LSD.
Right.
No, this is 100 times more powerful than sarin.
But I mean, like, what did this effect was bordering because it made you kind of trip balls a little bit, and that VX was a chemical that Hitler was literally jealous of.
Yeah.
Because the Nazis had been working with poisonous gases for so long, and then finally it was like VX was like the fucking Magic Johnson of gases that we had figured out, of course, because we're the inventors of jazz and stand-up comedy. You know.
Well, one of the reasons why America was so jazzed on getting a lot of chemical compounds and using a lot of chemical warfare was because this whole thing ties loosely into Operation Paperclip, which Operation Paperclip, if you remember, was the U.S. operation to take Nazi scientists and bring them over to America to work for us. If it wasn't for Operation Paperclip, we never would have gone into space. And
Prescott Bush was sitting in a hot tub with fucking Goebbels every fucking weekend talking about how best to make our boys all loopy. That's all they did. It was like, technically, they were like party masters. You know what I mean? Like, they were just like, how are we going to make these boys trip nuts this week? And he's like, well, what we used to do in Germany is we used to cut the penis off of one of the twins and see if the other twin felt it. And he's just
They
like,
did.
How about just like weed oil?
Yeah, they were sort of like that party monster character.
So the guy that was given the VX, he said that there was a radio on in the room, and he said the words made very little sense. He said there was a very calm disassociation from his environment. They gave him food, and he said that he had no idea what to do with the utensils in front of him. And he said as the test continued, this wave of tension just came over him, and he said that all of his nerve endings felt like they were being crushed in a vice. And this is, from a tiny little drop on his skin. Imagine if this stuff had been weaponized and put into a gas and sprayed out over a battlefield.
Then no one would know how to eat. And then they couldn't stab us with those forks that we were fighting with.
Send it to
game.
Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Send it to them. The other thing is like, this is just a high I've been searching for so long. You know what I mean? I've been smoking this medical weed out here, this strain called Charlie Sheen, and it makes me like, I'm like on top of a lamp. I'm like on top of a lamp, crouched like a gargoyle after I smoke like a bowl of it.
Seems a little warm, though. What condition did you tell the doctors that you had in order to get medical marijuana?
I said that I was looking to get kaleidoscope vision, and that normal vision is too boring for me, and that I'm too fast. I said the people keep telling me that I'm too fast and I'm too active, that I'm too productive.
Oh wait, we'll
and
just put you down as a speedy creative then. That'll be good.
So at Edgewood, during these gas tests, they had an actual gas chamber that they used. The whole thing was salvaged from a World War I Navy ship, which means it was airtight. The walls were extremely thick metal, and the only window outside was a nice little porthole.
And this is where the Unit 731 thought came into my mind, where they used to put them in the chamber, pressurized chamber, and turns out humans don't like a lot of pressure. That's why we live right here on Earth.
No, we pop like little grapes.
Yep.
The other thing is it's like, but I feel like, should we not have learned from the term fucking gas chamber? Should we not have learned from that term at this point? Can we call it like, this is our gas nook? Have you seen our gas nook?
I would just get rid of gas in general. A human refrigerator or just a playpen.
Just experiment room. You can call it anything, and you make it like Navy themed, and you put like the porthole, and you do like fun, like, you draw like ocean scene on the wall, like a nice mural with like Captain America on it.
Absolutely.
So this chamber was a perfect cube. All dimensions were 9 feet, which is not a lot of space. That's really, really fucking small. And the only source of light inside was a 100-watt bulb mounted behind an explosion-proof shield. And they had in this 9 by 9 by 9 foot room up to 7 men at any given time.
And they were all tripping nuts.
Well, I mean, that's what these guys, they weren't tripping nuts at the time.
Okay.
These guys, they participated in chamber tests, and they told them when they were going to go into this chamber, they told them that they were going to be testing summer clothing.
Ooh, so it was like a J. Crew catalog? And they're just going in there with their Nantucket shorts on and fedoras, just being like, oh, this is going to be a fun party. I hope Barbie's there.
And they were told that they were doing this in exchange for extra leave time before being sent overseas.
Well, you hear that a lot from witnesses on Bad Trip to Edgewood, and they all say the same thing. Was basically they were like, "Hey, would you rather pull another lab latrine duty, or would you rather come to Edgewood and try some cough medicine?" And they're all like, "Yeah." So all these people volunteered, basically thinking they were getting the easy way out of like doing chores in the army, but instead they were gassed in a tiny room. They were lied to. They were all lied to.
Yeah. And it wasn't even until they arrived at Edgewood that they were told that they were going to be doing gas chamber tests. And even after they were told that they were doing gas chamber tests, the officials refused to tell them what they were about to be exposed to. So it's like you line up. And then what they did is they lined these guys up. Sometimes they were dressed in protective clothing. Other times they were completely naked.
And it's like, how do you feel when you're just like, well, Brian's got a whole gas mask on. Why can't I just get a gas mask? Can I have a gas mask too?
No, and now give me your pants as well.
You mean my boss are gonna be out and he literally has a suit of armor on.
All nude.
So according to the protocol, the door could never be open for longer than 5 seconds. So these guys are lined up, sometimes naked. They have 5 seconds to run inside and get the door shut, because if they didn't get the door shut in time, too much of the gas would go out into the air and the experiment would be ruined. So to about 10 seconds before they were about to leave, after they'd been in there for a while, the attendant would bang on the door. And you're like, all right, boys, 10 seconds. Be sure to get out. And then as soon as they opened the door, they ran out again, had less than 5 seconds. No matter what had happened to them inside, no matter how badly they were burned by gas, no matter the respiratory problems that they had, again, 5 seconds to get out. And by the way, there was a handle on both sides. One on the inside, though, didn't work.
But I like that, though, because it trained those guys not to get in the way when you're going into a Dwayne Reed or when you're going into a Walgreens. I hate when people open the door all slow and they mosey on out. Get in there! Get out of there!
Also, these guys would be superstars at a bar bathroom.
Oh, absolutely. Any sort of concert outhouse, these guys know how to open and close a door and get out.
So when they were testing protective clothing, they did what they called man break tests. And
cool.
Oh, that sounds like a great test to be a part of.
So they put these guys in protective clothing, they put them in gas masks, and they left them in this chamber for anywhere between 1 and 4 hours.
Okay. And then what they would do is they would play with the humidity and temperature of the room. What they were saying is an amount of gases. So they leave them there for hours and then see how they could handle. They wanted to simulate jungle temperatures, because at this point, literally, and this was during the lead up to Vietnam as well. They had already known. Because we did the Gulf of Tonkin and basically forced ourselves into Vietnam. They were knowing that we were heading into jungle warfare soon. Yeah. And so they were trying to create a line of protective armor for people, because assuming that the Viet Cong or whoever we were fighting was going to use weaponized gases and not a series of bamboo-laden booby-trap tunnels.
Yeah.
Which we should have been training for this whole time, which they should have been doing as fucking obstacle courses.
It was mostly Dookie that brought us down, actually, in Vietnam, if you really think about it.
Well, our eyes were all on Russia at this time. Of course, this is when the Cold War is really starting to ramp up, and we knew that Russia was testing chemical weapons just as much as we were, and we knew that they knew that we were testing chemical weapons. So we're trying to be in a chemical. We're in a race with Russia with everything at this point, but we're definitely in a chemical weapons race. So
I will say we definitely won the race of dental care.
Oh, we will destroy the Russians in nice-sized foreheads.
And the other thing. Oh,
there's a great documentary, though, the Donald Rumsfeld one, The Unknown Known.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how Dick Cheney and him, they just completely inflated the Russian numbers. And for the most part, the Russians were, they were tough, but they weren't that damn tough.
No.
And I guarantee you, we were winning the gas game.
No, the most famous story was when Russian jets would fly off. They would fly off of the tarmac. They'd go to a different location, repaint the whole jet, and then come back and fly that one off again. So they would.
It's a cartoon.
Yeah, it's like a cartoon. Because they didn't have that many jets. MiGs was what they had, right? Those were the Russian jets.
12 of them.
And they were only testing this stuff to show the Russians that they were testing it. Yeah. It's all a big, gigantic game, and the people that got punished were the soldiers.
Yeah.
Well, everybody else was fine. They were all using these guys like fucking pawns.
I will say, though, this is not the worst experimentation we've ever seen on soldiers. Most of these people came out of there and were actually okay, and we'll get more into that in part 2. Some of these people were like, can I come back next weekend? I love that LSD.
That's what Dr. Ketchum, the guy who was in charge of the LSD test, was like. That was his big point at the end of Bad Trip of Edgewood. He's like, you guys always bring out all these people who say they're all depressed and screwed up, but there are several people who said that it made them pretty groovy.
Yeah, well, you know what those people were given? They were given Demerol. The people who said, like, I found that out in the New Yorker articles, that the people who said, like, this is amazing, those guys were given Demerol. They were given a sedative.
They won the lottery.
Michael Jackson juice and feeling amazing.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about, horrible experiments, going back to the gas chambers, these guys, what they would do is they would bring them out of these 4-hour sessions, and then they would examine the bodies of the soldiers, and if there weren't any burns on the soldiers...
Private Stevens, why are you rock hard right now? You are. Why do you have
the gas chamber? I am loving the gas chamber, and I'm loving being there with all these men. And that's how you get out of that. That's immediately how you get out of that. If you go into a gas chamber with 7 other men and you just go like, eep, they're like, all right, well, he's not ready for war.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, obviously, prisoners of war, they've been all over the news lately. And I was thinking about the other day, what if you just like start getting tortured and you just start to like love it? More, yeah, more with the, electrodes, yeah.
You just go to start sucking the other guy's dick.
Yeah,
just because they're going like, well, I'm gonna just go, well, do you mind if I suck your dick? and then you'll be out of there in a second.
Oh yeah, they're so homophobic. That's how you get out of all these masculine challenges. Just pretend like they make you aroused.
So after they examined these soldiers, if there weren't any burns on their bodies, they ordered them to go back to the gas chamber every single day until they did get burned. And a lot of the tissue damage was all over their bodies. It took more than a month to heal a lot of these guys. And the ones that became sick during these tests, they said that they were threatened with court-martials if they didn't continue to go into the chamber every single day until they did get burned.
So by the end of it, they all look like that tan mom from New Jersey who spends half of her life in the old sunning booths.
The other thing, too, is like what they don't talk about here, too, is this sort of just how... It is against the nature of any soldier, of any bit of the training, to deny what your superior tells you to do.
Absolutely.
So what Dr. Ketchum also then says later on is that like they had the option to leave. They always had the option to quit, and it's like, no, they didn't.
No, you
There's
don't.
No, you were forced to agree.
Yeah. And they also say that during these gas chamber tests, that some guys would collapse in the chamber. After they collapsed, they would be dragged away, and they said that they never saw those guys ever again. So it's very likely that a fair amount of guys died during these gas chamber experiments. I doubt they just reassign them.
Marcus, those guys were sent to that big, awesome soldier farm upstate because there was room for them to run and stay, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's also what happened in World War II with all the people that were put on the trains. Yeah, they went to a mountain
Jews were having a great time somewhere in Aruba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard that.
And even though we don't know how many people were tested during this time, we do know through records that the Chemical Corps Medical Division, they sent letters to more than 1,000 soldiers, and they thanked them for, quote, subjecting themselves to pain, discomfort, and possible permanent injury for the advancement of research and protection of our armed forces.
But they really did.
Yeah.
They really did. Again, thousands of kids were saved because of these things.
And I do want to say this about Edgewood, is for the most part, this is a very good example of the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Mm-hmm. Because all of these scientists came out and they all also, of course, because it was their jobs to defend it, but they all say the same thing of just being like, we were doing this for good reasons. We were trying to defend against gas attack and against these types of things and figure out how to make a weaponless war. But they're just so stupid.
But that being said, though, at the same time, they had no concern for these players. They're like an athletic director in a major NCAA football program who gives a full scholarship, and the guy stubs his toe or breaks his ankle. He's like, oh, I'm sorry, got to let you go. You can no longer help us win. I mean, they had no concern for these soldiers' lives whatsoever.
No. There was a bottom line. And the big thing, too, is where this VX came out of, which I find really, one of those, fucked up things, is that the reason why sarin doesn't work very well is because it doesn't have a long shelf life in terms of being lethal, is that once you release the gas, once it disperses, it's not lethal. So it's basically only works the first time you shoot it. And so VX came out as a thing of being like kind of making it more napalmy, which is like we're going to make sure that it comes out and it sticks to them. And it's 10 times more lethal.
When God was creating semen, he had a similar problem, and that's why now semen is so sticky.
I remember that old psalm. Slick was the semen that didn't make a babe. Sticky was the semen that made Solomon's hair. You know what I mean?
That's right. That's right, Henry. I didn't know you read the Bible.
I went to Catholic school.
Very good.
Well, the government not only tested on soldiers, very quickly, just a quick reminder that the government also tested on regular United States citizens. In 1951, they sprayed a bacteria over San Francisco in which 11 people were hospitalized.
Marcus,
one died.
Get more into this. This was the general public was not informed that this was going to be happening.
God, no. And there are plenty. There are things that happen in St. Louis that people, are. It's still rumored, but there are definitely some that are very confirmed, such as Operation Big City, which they did here in New York and cities all across America. But us here in New York City, we were definitely the ground zero for it. That was in February 1956. And they
would fill light bulbs, right, for all intents and purposes, with bacteria and just drop them down in the subway system.
Yeah, they would fill light bulbs with bacteria and they'd throw them in front of trains so they could see how fast the bacteria could spread.
Which didn't give a shit.
No.
And like we've learned, and when we were first talking about MK Ultra, we learned this story because it was like their favorite thing to do was, because the idea is that they wanted to see what the true effects were. So they didn't want to let anybody know that they were being dosed. So CIA members were dosing each other with LSD and different drugs all the time. And this is Operation Big City is where the story came from of the CIA operative who was dosed and then committed suicide by jumping out of a window. And they had these connections to whorehouses in New York where they would help them dose Johns. And we cover that a little bit.
Yeah, we've covered this in our chemical war. We had a chemical warfare episode a long time ago, and we also covered a little bit in MK Ultra.
But I mean, it does. I don't know if the CIA introduced crack in the 70s or 80s or whatnot, but it certainly doesn't seem like it's outside of their wheelhouse. They literally were testing unbelievably dangerous bacteria on random strap hangers in New York City. And
all of this is documented, and all of this it was tried in court. These people were paid reparations.
The federal government, 22 years later, after somebody died, I forget the name of the fellow, finally was just like, sorry about that.
Yeah. And they also gave the family $675,000 in reparations for that.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So in 1947, this guy, Alsop Corwin, he was consulting for the government as far as chemical warfare went, and he just kind of said, almost as an afterthought, he said, one rather spectacular possibility should certainly be called to attention. This is the possibility of producing mass hallucinations and uncontrollable hysteria by intoxication. It was a throwaway line. It was just like, and this is also interesting.
Well, that was
we could probably produce mass hallucinations and uncontrollable hysteria. But, in the end, we would need some kind of awesome rock music to supply that as well.
Right. I was going to say, I think the chapter head was like, how to make 4th of July better.
That's the problem, is that if you take all the sinister stuff out of this, I'm just be like, fuck yeah.
I know.
Up, man.
It doesn't matter what we say. I'm still sort of like, I'm going to volunteer.
Yeah. So this guy, L. Wilson Green, he took that sentence and he ran with it. He combined that sentence with all of the Army's research that they had done over the last, 30, 40 years on nerve agents. And he wrote a classified report. It was called Psychochemical Warfare, a New Concept of War. And I think this right here, we talked about it earlier, but this little paragraph right here, this is the basis of all of this. He said, throughout recorded history, wars have been characterized by death, human misery, and the destruction of property, each major conflict being more catastrophic than the one preceding it. I am convinced that it is possible, by means of the techniques of psychochemical warfare, to conquer an enemy without the wholesale killing of his people or the mass destruction of his property.
Let's blow people's fucking domes apart.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like reading all this last night and just fucking listening. I looked up a bunch of Hendrix and I was just getting high as shit.
Yeah.
And just listen to Hendrix just going like, woo, woo, I'm working in the army.
Well, a lot of people do believe